All right, so when it comes to money, there are a lot of things that feel like they're working against us. We have an exponential rise in the cost of living. We're in a current job crisis. Gas is more expensive, groceries are more expensive, and it feels like we're doing more work for less. No doubt that there are a lot of external pressures that just make things feel tighter and like we have less and less money in our pocket. That's definitely not lost on me, but there are also other factors here at play. And some of those can just simply be bad money habits and bad money mindsets. I can definitely tell you that I've been there. I used to be a full-blown shopaholic and in over $120,000 of student loan debt that I could never get out from underneath of because of my bad money habits and my terrible relationship with money. Today, I'm very lucky to say that I am completely debt-free, and I can attribute that success to, yes, increasing my income, but I also had to really overhaul a lot of these bad money habits. So in today's video, I want to share with you all the bad money habits that were keeping me broke. And it's only when I started to address some of these habits and recognize what I was doing that I was able to make a change and start taking authority over what I could control about my spending and about my money. So let's get into it. Now my mic is on, so hopefully the audio sounds a lot better. Number one was spending to save. Look, I love a good deal. I love getting things on sale. I want you to save money. But if you're buying things just because they're on sale or buying more of things to get a deal, then you're not really saving any money. This is really how marketing, advertising, and money psychology gets the better of us. We love the idea of a win. We love the idea of a bargain, and a sale is a version of that. And I really had to come to terms with the fact that just because something was on sale didn't mean that I needed to buy it. Since learning this, it's really helped me resist buying things just because they're on sale, and it's helped me resist the temptation of things like Amazon Prime Day, the Sephora sale, Aritzia clientele sale. All these things are meant to generate FOMO, but if I didn't have my eye on that thing ahead of time, as in if I wasn't willing to pay full price for it, then just because it's on sale, it doesn't mean I'm saving any money. There's that old saying where you save 100% of the money you don't spend, and when it comes to sales, I find that to be true. And this brings me into bad habit number two, and that is not being able to pass up the deal. This is something that I think is slightly different than buying things just because they're on sale. I think it's a version of that, but I'm also talking about things like thrifting. Oftentimes when you're shopping secondhand, garage sailing, antiquing, anything like that, it's so easy to buy more and spend more because the items are so cheap. And because the items are so cheap, the stakes are kind of low. Like if you end up buying something at the thrift for $5 and it doesn't end up really working out for you, then depending on your financial situation, that $5 may not really matter to you so much, and you kind of let it go. But that adds up, not only with just your wallet, but with your physical space too. The more we buy, the more clutter we bring into our lives, and I find it is so easy to do that, especially with secondhand shopping and thrifting. The reality is, it's not really the stuff that you want, it's the deal. And that's where that thrill and dopamine hit often comes from. So I think it's really important, especially when you're shopping at places that have kind of a low barrier to entry and you find yourself in a scenario that is full of opportunities and cute gems and one-of-a-kinds and can't pass up deals, then I think it's really important to stay focused in on exactly what you're looking for, what you need to buy, or what you want to buy. Have something in mind ahead of time, keep a shopping list, and stick to that. And that way it becomes a whole lot less clutter in your space and more money that you keep in your pocket. Number three is lifestyle creep. If you've never heard of lifestyle creep before, it essentially explains the phenomenon of feeling like you need to spend more money as you earn more money. So when you increase your lifestyle along with your income, sometimes it can end up feeling like you're still in the exact same place financially, because even though you're making more money, you're still spending it on lifestyle. I think it's very common to get your first big paycheck and then feel like you need to go buy a brand new car or upgrade your apartment right away. You start going on a bunch of fancy vacations a couple of times a year, and it kind of happens all at once at the expense of things like investing, saving, or paying off debt. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy nice things and that you shouldn't upgrade your lifestyle, but I think you'll feel more secure and happier about your financial situation if you do it slowly and mindfully over time. Because lifestyle creep really gets you when you increase your standard of living and things that were once considered luxuries now become necessities. And it becomes very difficult to downgrade your lifestyle from there. So just make sure that you can afford it, have a plan in place, and avoid sacrificing your other financial goals and your financial security in the name of upgrading your lifestyle. Number four is fantasy self-spending. I was a victim of my fantasy self for absolute years, and it is still sometimes difficult to avoid spending in the name of that fantasy self. I talk a lot about the fantasy self on my channel, and if you've never heard of it, it's essentially buying for the person that you wish to become or that you wish to be instead of the person that you actually are. So for example, your fantasy self might be some fabulous cosmopolitan New York City Carrie Bradshaw type where, you run around in 4-inch stilettos and drink cosmopolitans all day long, but in your reality, you walk to work every single day. In the past, I found myself shopping primarily for my fantasy self, but over time, that's when I really started to notice that none of my clothes reflected my personal style. I probably actually wore about 5% of my wardrobe, and that whole feeling of a closet full of clothes and nothing to wear? Well, it might be because a lot of your closet is currently representing your fantasy self rather than what you need in your actual everyday life. Now, I don't think spending in the name of your fantasy self is all bad. For example, I think when you have a goal to reach or a certain transformation that you want to make, then you do have to kind of begin with the end in mind. For example, if you want to get healthier or be able to run a 5K, then that might necessitate spending on a gym membership or buying a pair of running shoes, for example. But the key with fantasy self spending is that you have to do something to make that fantasy a reality. The spending gets really out of alignment when you're buying in the name of the fantasy self, but you're doing nothing to actually make it a reality. So I do think it's important to have an image of the person you want to be. It's kind of like the dress for the job you want type of thing. But oftentimes we don't implement the steps to make that fantasy a reality, and that's when that money just ends up being wasted. So I don't think the fantasy self is necessarily all bad. It just needs to act as an avatar that is in alignment with the life that you want to live. And I think it needs to align with the life you actually live. If all you do is buy for your fantasy self but do nothing to actually make it real for you, then all you're doing is making yourself more broke and you're just dreaming at that point. Number 5 was using my credit card as a crutch. Credit crutching. Is that a thing? Credit crutching. Credit card debt is something that almost everybody has. A recent survey showed that 61% of Americans are in credit card debt. That is 3 out of 5 people, where they owe an average of $5,800. In addition to that, 23% said that they go into a deeper credit card debt every month, and 14% of people said they missed a payment in 2023. Reliance on credit cards can be an income problem, but for a lot of other people, myself included, it's simply a tracking problem. As in, I never kept track of my spending, and I would often use my credit card as a crutch because I kind of thought that, by the time I get paid next, I'll be able to pay it off. But the problem with that was I would rack up such a credit card bill every time because I would just use it so freely. And now we have things like one-click buy, Apple Pay, you can scan and buy things with your watch now. So it's essentially frictionless to use your credit card, and it almost feels like fake money at the time. The problem with that buy now, pay later type of habit is that if you're not keeping track of how much you're buying now, then what you have to pay later can run away from you really fast. Yes, you might be able to pay off your full credit card bill, and then you're stuck relying on credit again until your next payday, and on it goes. One of the things that helped me get out of this cycle was learning how to budget and getting an exact knowledge of how much money I made every month and how much it cost for me to live. This does require some tracking your spending, and it also requires saying no to yourself sometimes. And I'm not talking about if you're not making enough money to cover your basic expenses. I'm talking about more behaviors where you find yourself just willy-nilly putting everything on your credit card without keeping track of that number. It adds up quick and you can get stuck in that cycle really easily. So doing things like saying no to yourself and paying surgical attention to your spending is really important. A good rule of thumb for me is if I can't pay for it in full today, then I can't afford it. It's as simple as that. Number 6 was not prioritizing investing. This was bad for many, many years for me because as a former shopaholic, I would tell myself things like, I don't have enough money to invest, or I'm not smart enough to prioritize investing, or investing is for money people. And I would feel a lot of resistance even putting down like $100 a month into my investment accounts. But then I would turn around and have absolutely zero problem spending $500 on a pair of shoes that I, by the way, never even ended up wearing. So I think when it comes to investing and any resistance you might feel like you have to it, it's really important to address some of the limiting beliefs and stories that we're telling ourselves about it. Even putting $5 a week into investments, at least it's going to get you started, and it's better than nothing. But it's going to change your mindset and help you start to see how you can invest in your future self instead of focusing on instant gratification all the time. But a lot of us, myself included, really don't don't have our priorities straight when it comes to taking care of your future self. And I think it's because it is really difficult to picture yourself in the future, but by the time you actually get there, you'll be happy that you did it. Number 7 is not paying yourself first. Every time I got paid, I was often in the habit of paying myself last. For many years, every time I got paid, this is where the money would go. First, it would go to living and expenses, so things like my rent, bills, gas, my cell phone bill. Then it would go to credit card and student loan payments. And then whatever was left over, I'd say, well, I paid all my bills, I'm adulting, I worked really hard, now I'm gonna treat myself. Oh, and then anything at the end of that, I guess I'll try to save. But newsflash, none of that money ever ended up getting saved. And forget about investing. And it's because I was in the habit of paying myself last. This nowadays I actually automate. So every time I get paid, I have my bank set up so that a certain percentage of my paycheck immediately goes into savings and investments without me even having to think about it. And this is almost like a little hack, because when that money is automatically withdrawn in the same way as if you put something on auto pay, it's like you never even had that money to begin with, so your brain just doesn't count it as money that you actually have. But in the background, it's secretly being invested, it's secretly being saved, and I make sure that this money goes completely into a separate bank, because that way I'm less likely to pull from it. But that simple switch in automation is a really great way that you can start saving and investing on autopilot, and it just gets your mind used to having a certain amount of money to play with. Because this is now automated for me, it's kind of like a set it and forget it, and it's a way that you can actually be consistent with your saving and investing because it's on autopilot. And remember, it's not how much you put in, it's the fact that you're actually doing it. So focus on that. Next was always prioritizing instant gratification. Look, I am all about living in the now, but if all you do is focus on living in the now, then by the time your future self gets to their present, they're gonna be pretty pissed off at you. And you know, it's hard not to give in to instant gratification. And the way the world works today in social media and the way we pay for things and how we're advertised to things, even in how things are delivered to us, it's all based on instant gratification. We don't wanna wait for anything anymore, and more importantly, we do not like to tell ourselves no. But as the old saying goes, good things come to those who wait. And in my experience, it saved me a whole lot of money. And through that waiting, not only has it saved me a ton of money, but it also taught me so much about myself. The problem with instant gratification too is that it just focuses on your immediate impulse right now. They often say to wait before you respond, wait before you say yes. And I also think we need to wait before we decide to buy something. When it comes to shopping, this is where I like to utilize a wish list, because when I just give myself that little bit of breathing room, even if it's like 15 minutes, I can't tell you how many things that I told myself I absolutely needed to have right now that I completely forgot about, just by giving myself that little bit of space. The next bad money habit that was keeping me broke for quite a long time was saying yes to everything. Because you know, you want to hang, you want to fit in, you want to have fun with your friends, but I would constantly say yes to dinners, drinks, movies, trips. I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer. I didn't want to be a bummer. I didn't want to be perceived as not being able to hang, or even just being perceived as being broke, because I couldn't afford a lot of these things that my friends wanted to do, if I was being honest with myself. And I think that does create a lot of pressure. But the problem is when you say yes to everything, then you're inevitably saying no to something else. And that could be the thing that's actually more important to you. So if you have a financial goal, especially if it's like paying off debt or saving really aggressively for something, or just trying to implement financial boundaries, then I think it's really important to learn to say no to some of these things that come across your table. And peer pressure is definitely a thing, but if you're honest with your friends about certain goals that you may have financially, then the real ones will understand. And there's tons of free things that you can do to hang out with a friend anyways. A good time doesn't need to cost a lot of money. And finally, it's when-centric thinking. You know, like when I get that raise, then I'll start budgeting. Or when I make $100K a year, then I won't have to worry about money anymore. And a lot of that is true. I think that money does buy happiness, or at least a sense of safety and stability. Income matters, but so does behavior. And I was a good example as any of that. I made good money, but I was broke. And I also think it's important to strive to make more money if you can, to find ways to increase your income. But the problem with delaying getting started with really important things like saving, investing, or a simple feeling of control over your finances, waiting until you make a certain amount of money to do that, not only will you be unprepared when you actually get there, but I think it really takes away your power over your money right now. Because things like budgeting, saving, investing, and tracking your spending can really be for everybody. And it's gonna give you a sense of control and autonomy over your money that I really don't think you need to wait for. More money can certainly solve a whole lot of problems, but it's your relationship to it and how you spend it that matters too. So don't wait to get started. So those are some of the bad money habits that were keeping me broke for a really long time. And it wasn't until I started to address some of these habits and some of these money mindsets and just bad assumptions that I had about myself that I was really able to turn things around and change my relationship with my money, but also with myself. I think the nice thing about coming to terms with a lot of these bad habits is that you're just able to get really honest with yourself and really start to see where you can make changes in your life to see those positive benefits over time. Let me know some bad money habits that you've had in the past and how you change them. And if you're working on some of that habit change now, share in the comments below what you did and what's working for you. I think it's a really great way that we can all stay motivated. Thanks so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if it helped you in some way. It's a great way you can help support my channel and help it grow. Share it with a friend who needs it. Subscribe if you're new and you want more videos like this. And I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.